Hello. We are live. Nice to see you all. If you're here, please say hi. Let me know you're here. It'd be nice to see who's joined us all. And hopefully you can hear me. I haven't done this for a little while. And I always forget the settings. So I hope you can hear me. Seems to be okay. So today, I just wanted to jump on here and say hello and chat a little bit about hidden truth in movies because we had such a fun time last time we talked about it. And also, I had we have our weekly film discussion on Sunday mornings, and today's got rescheduled. So we had some personal interference, which is fine. So today got rescheduled. So I kind of had some free time. And we're talking about Donald Sutherland's filmography in the film discussion, and it's really quite fascinating. So, some of the things we were talking about, we covered 4 of his films, and we're now looking at his personal situation, so some of his personal life, some of his personal story, as well as like what imagery shows up behind him, similar to what I did with Johnny Depp. And that's turning out to be quite fascinating. So that's what we're doing in Discord for members at the moment. And if you're a member and you're watching and you haven't joined in, please join us because you get so much out of these film discussions. It's an opportunity for you to try your hand at decoding yourself and share it with the group and get to know other members yeah, and get to know other members and to um, also hear their perspectives. And so there's several of us sharing our perspective on what we see in all of these films. And this overall perspective of um, looking at a collection of films for one actor is a little different than what we usually do. We usually do one film. Hi, Volment. Okay, so you used to be God was bored. Okay, Andrea on board. I'm glad to see you're evolving. And then we have evolvement. Hi. So, yeah, like this overall discussion from a perspective of looking at one actor's filmography is a little different. Usually we just cover a single film that a member will choose and we'll break it down for its hidden esoteric meaning and symbolism and everything. And some of the discussions are highly sophisticated, and it's fine for whatever level you're at. And so it's really great opportunity for you to learn about decoding and doing it yourself. I shared your channel and the episode of What We Do in the Shadows with my brother. That show is packed with symbolism and messaging too. The episode you're in is one of the best loved ones of us fans. Hi, Marie Eve, Danielle. Nice to see you. 1303. I'm glad to see you here. I'm glad to see that you shared that episode. Yeah, it's funny because I don't know. Yeah, there is a lot in that show for sure. Um, but I'm glad you liked the episode that I was in. Like I said, it was a fun episode to be in. It was a good one to shoot. And I think it was one of the last things that I have actually participated in. I don't think it was the last, but it was one of the last. But yeah. So, yes, like we're open to talking about any films that you're watching or you want to talk about. I just wanted to open up the discussion to see, just keep in touch with you guys what's going on. The show is starting It's sixth and final season on Monday. My episode was the one with Mark Hamill, final season. Oh, it's still going? Okay. Yeah, it was the one with Mark Hamill, which was really cool. It was cool to meet him. He's a really nice, down to earth guy. Really good sense of humor. So, yeah, that's one thing we're working on. And then also, if you want to learn how to do decoding, I also have the Decode with Me series. So I post on YouTube a version of the video that I'm working on in its raw form before I do the decode, pointing out some of the obvious codes. And then I will go back and decode it, and you can see the final result on my website for members, or you can purchase it independently. So there's two great ways to learn how to decode. And if you're a member, I encourage you to participate in those as much as you can and get as much as you can out of that interaction, because it's it's a really fun time every Sunday when we sit there and we talk to each other. It's so much fun. We get so many insights, not just from the decoding, but even just sharing our experiences and what we're going through. And it's it's really great getting to know all of you better. So Mark Hamill is a huge liberal. My brother was a huge SW fan and is very upset Mark Hamill is so blue. He's excited to vote for Trump next month. I wish he would listen to your channel. Well, I can understand why it may not be for him, but it's at least you are listening to my channel, and maybe it'll seep over to your brother at some point. So aside from what we do in the shadows, you all watching right now, at the moment I'm watching Ashes to Ashes, and on Tuesday I'm going to go to the theater to watch the new movie with what's her name, Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. The we live in time, and I don't think it's going to be what I think it's going to be, but because it stars the stars of these two films, I have to go see it. So I'm very excited about that. Um, it looks like it could be a little bit sad, so I think I should take my tissues. And yeah, Ashes to Ashes is a spin-off of the UK version of Life on Mars, which was really interesting. If you've seen Life on Mars, let me know. Because Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes is very trippy. It's very trippy. If you've seen it, can you vouch that you think that it's trippy? Because, okay, so yesterday I was watching Ashes to Ashes, and at the same time I was reading Reddit posts of people sharing their experiences from lucid dreaming and the result that they would have if they talk to people in their dream. Would the people in their dream react like, well, yeah, it's a dream. I know that it's a dream. Or would they act like normal and stare at you like you're crazy? Well, apparently both are true. And it depends on your personal assumptions. So listening to people sharing their experiences in lucid dreaming, saying they're telling people that they're in a dream, and some of the responses are, what? Like, why are you telling me? This doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't compute. Kind of like in our world. And then others are annoyed because they're trying to enjoy the dream and enjoy the illusion of the dream, and you're ruining it. I thought that was really funny. So while I'm watching Ashes to Ashes, which is about a woman who's in a coma and her consciousness goes into another reality. It's like her subconscious is trying to work out a problem so that she can wake up again. It's it's very representative of the world we live in right now. And having those two things happening simultaneously was super trippy, because while I'm reading the Reddit posts and watching the show, I'm also taking that and transposing it onto our existing reality. And some of the insights were just like, well, yeah, that's the way things are here. And it was just some of these things that we absorb hits upon something subliminally or subconsciously, and it works without us having to consciously think about it. It just sort of triggers something. And that's what happened to me. It triggered something and made a connection. And I had a window into understanding the nature of this reality at a different level. And it was kind of exciting, liberating, and um, surprising, because it came from, well, some of it came from the podcast I'm working on for this week, which is dealing with breaking through the fear. And on the other side of fear is everything that you want. So, like everything, that phrase, everything you want is on the other side of your fear, because it's paradoxical or dualistic. So, this this whole experience was all interwoven, and I guess all the right elements came into place at the same time in perfect sequence for this revelation of mine to happen. And it's not like it's anything super new or anything. It's just taking existing information and seeing it a slightly different way that provides more clarity. And essentially, so on the other side of the fear is love. And the fear is what is blocking us from welcoming in all of the love. And the fear is creating this sort of scary monster that's actually not as frightening as we think it is, because the frightening part is an illusion. And so on the other side of that, when we look at the fear and we cast a light on it and it goes away, we see the love. And the love is trying to get our attention kind of through the fear that in this 911 trauma center. So this fear dissipates, and we see that the love on the other side is telling us, this is what you really want. And your fear is lying to you and telling you that you don't want it. So when you clear away the fear or the fog, or, whatever metaphor you want to give it, you find that you can actually have the thing that you want, the thing that you desire, your heart's desire. So I also saw that in the sense of how it transposed onto our physical reality, and we live in this sort of fear bubble where, if you recall my two worlds video that shows the lower, what I call the lower red world or the blue sky world, and then there's a gap in between, and then on the other side is the blue sky, the blue world or the red sky world. And so you pop the bubble in the fear zone, which is the lower chakra zone, and then you access the heart. And on the other side of the heart is all of your dreams. And so your wildest dreams come true, because now you've burst the fear bubble and there's no fear left. You're just left with heart, love. So that revelation was trippy. It was very trippy. Um so yeah, like that's an example of some of the revelations that you can get just by watching these shows in a totally different way. But yeah, like Ashes to Ashes is really quite fascinating in um it's kind of the same as Life on Mars. Life on Mars was also about a guy who went into a coma. And are you hearing me? Because this is starting to um lag. There's some hearts here. I take that as a yes. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why it's lagging. It really is disappointing. Okay. So, yeah, life on Mars was like it was this guy who fell into a coma, and he had to find his way out through working through all the presentations of his subconscious. And what's really fascinating about life on Mars, and not so much happening in Ashes to Ashes, is in Life on Mars, they show us how the other world reality seeps into our world or his world, but it's really the same thing. And they especially have featured how the TV talks to you. You're typing in my recommendations for movies. Cool. So, yeah, like the okay, here we go. Something's working now. So the thanks, involvement. So yeah, so the Ashes to Ashes is not so much showing the seeping through of the other reality, which is what I found most fascinating in Life on Mars, is how they show the real reality, or 2006 seeping into 1973, and they remain aware the entire time that they're in a false reality. And I don't want to, I mean, I kind of touched upon the ending of Life on Mars in my podcast episode, but I don't want to spoil it too much. Ashes to Ashes is UK, I believe, 20, was it? So 2006 was Life on Mars. So around 2009 or something like that. And it's the UK version. You might find it you can find it on BritBox. I'm not sure if you can find it elsewhere. But but yeah, like for me the main thing that was fascinating was the ending of and the TV talking to you. They do show the TV talking to you in Ashes to Ashes, and also the fact that they both have to solve something. They feel that they have to solve something in order to get back. Another thing that's really fascinating about it is they talk about how time is different. So they could spend years in this false reality trying to solve this issue, but really it's a matter of minutes in the so-called real world. So the time difference is fascinating because clearly we're experiencing years, decades, maybe even centuries, depending on how long we're down here. And up there, if you want to look at it from up there, down here, or whatever, um, it's one night. So in a matter of hours, we could live centuries or hundreds, thousands of years down here. But yeah, like same the same with Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes is the same here, where we feel we have to solve something in order to exit, in order to get out. Is this a crime drama series featuring Life on Mars DCI Gene Hunt after being shot in 2008? DI Alex Drake lands in 1981 where she finds herself in familiar company. Yes, that's it. The thing is too is the bulk of the focus on those shows is on the current reality in which they live, which is either 1973 for Life on Mars, 1981 for Ashes to Ashes, which is I would prefer to see a little bit more of the other world, but I do understand why they focus more on the current world they're in because the longer they're in it, the more real it seems for them. And the other thing that's trippy about it is they they show it as a very realistic and they film it as very realistic, but they also show it as a TV show and they show it as a dream. So there are things that happen in a very dreamlike fashion, and the fact that they're presenting it in the form of a television show is also weird, but not weird because we know that we're in a television show. So those things paired together are reasons why I really like these shows, and I recommend you watch them. And sometimes it becomes interactive. The last thing I was watching, I think it was 2 episodes ago on Ashes to Ashes. I'm still in season 1. I think there's 3 seasons. There was a moment where they went in to interview a suspect, and this one of the police officers looked right at the camera, which always means they're looking at the viewer, and this means that whatever follows in terms of dialogue is directed at the viewer. So one of the actors was looking directly at the camera, and the dialogue that followed was, "Are you looking at me? Are you looking at me?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So it was like a Robert De Niro impression, obviously, and they were talking about somebody coming in and holding up the convenience store, and that phrase went around to 3 different people as if it was trying to get my attention, and I thought, "Well, this is weird. What are you trying to tell me?" So, things like that are happening in both of these shows, this interactivity. So in Life on Mars, I was watching the episode where um I can't remember the characters' names, I'm sorry. Um there's Gene Hunt, which is the head cop, the detective, and then there's another junior detective. He's the guy who died. Well, not died. He's the guy who went into a coma and he's the main character. So the two of them are going to investigate this story or this case, and they end up at yeah, Gene Hunt is in both. So they go to they go to this Indian food restaurant, and I said to the television, I said, "Okay, well, I'm kind of getting a little frustrated that you're focusing mostly on the cop show aspect. I'd like a little bit more engagement with the other world." And within seconds, they get out of the car and they say, "Well, this is different." And then the main actor goes up to the window of the restaurant, and in the reflection of the window, he sees the reflection of the other world and starts to hear the other world, which comes through as Britney Spears' Toxic, and he can see one of the streets of Manchester coming through. And so, wow, okay, did I do that? and and so he turns around and he looks around to see, well, where is it? Where is this other world? And it's not there. So he goes into the restaurant, but this is also the first time that he has reacted to the other world while he's in sight of other people in this world. So Gene Hunt sees him react to something that's not there, and he says, "What are you doing? What are you looking at?" And then they go into the restaurant and they're having their dinner, and the radio comes on. I mean, how many times have you had music on the radio fit the context of whatever it is that you're doing? And it's like in the Truman Show when the radio comes on and you're hearing it, and it sounds like it's talking about you, or it sounds like the music is reflective of what's happening at the moment. So that's what was happening in the restaurant where his name is Sam. Sam hears the radio talking about him. And so he gets up and he's a little freaked out and he goes over to the radio and he's looking around the restaurant. And he says, "Don't you hear this? Don't you hear this?" And everybody's looking at him like he's crazy. And this sort of thing happens a lot. Not that you would hear the radio actually talk to you or, call you out directly, but in a less specific way, the radio will communicate with us, and there'll be synchronicities in terms of um something you're doing or something that's relevant at the time. There will be a song come on the radio that speaks to you. So this was more direct, more obvious. So yeah, those sorts of things happen quite a bit in these two shows. So there's a lot of interactivity, a lot of um interactivity with the viewer and interactivity with the other world. So it's almost like they're bringing in the viewer as another world, right? So you're watching while it's interacting on three levels. It's kind of freaky. Um I'm going to watch Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes. Does it matter which order? Yeah, so watch Life on Mars first. Because this is Ashes to Ashes is like a sequel. It follows on. So another okay, I haven't seen this movie and I'm not a horror fan. I don't like horror films, and this one looks particularly gruesome, but I feel like I have to watch at least some of it, and it's The Substance. Has anybody seen that or heard of it? Someone shared it in Discord with the trailer, and it's got Demi Moore, who is an aging aerobics instructor and a celebrity. And on her 50th birthday, I think she's fired. And so she's kind of desperate to recapture her youth and takes this substance to bring out a better version of herself, which the way in which they do it from what I have seen is horrifying, because this other version of her, like, literally comes out of her body. They haven't seen exactly how they do it, but I kinda am guessing that she comes out of the body. I know, Demi is over 60. She looks great, but I was like, "Come on, you couldn't say she was 60, or you couldn't have somebody who's more age appropriate?" So, yeah, but Demi looks fantastic anyway. Of course, she's had a lot of work done, which is kind of misleading, but whatever. Like, that's part of the movie, I guess. But the substance is like this sort of, I guess, thing that you shoot into your body, your system, that you take, that's supposed to bring out the better version of you. However, there's like a clause where you have to be your regular self 7 days, and then you can be your better self for another 7 days. But you can't do more. So it's kind of like making an agreement with the devil, I guess. And obviously, some things go awry. You know that the contract is going to get broken because as soon as you put a contract in place, that's grounds for breaking it. So the the thing that I found intriguing about it is this idea of bringing out your better self, because law of assumption communities are all about, your better life, your best life, your best self, your your dream reality, this sort of thing, which there isn't anything wrong with that. However, it can become toxic if you start to regard yourself as you are as not being good enough. And then you get addicted into a negative mindset, which is dangerous. But this substance could be sort of like a physical representation of the feminine, the divine feminine energy, like black goo type of thing. But it's like how how far is it going to go? I don't like horror films, but this idea of accessing your better self and how they portray it, what kind of messaging is going to be in there, what kind of truths are going to be in there. I can see quite a bit of truth already revealed in the trailer. So this is what I find intriguing enough for me to want to at least peek at it. Eternal being, hello. Aloha. Hey. I was just getting out of bed and catching up. Good morning, all. Gonna have to watch these shows. Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna have to watch these shows. There's so much. Yeah, like the substance, like, definitely wanna close your eyes for some of it. From the trailer, it's pretty gross, especially if you don't watch horror. But, the reviews are mixed because I guess, um, depending on, like, whether you like that kinda genre or not. But, I've seen a couple of these videos where they talk about the film and having seen it. So that was intriguing too because I wanted to see what people were saying. Much like with Don't Worry Darling when that came out. I wasn't interested in Don't Worry Darling at first because of the controversy and the drama surrounding that movie with the actors and everything. And after I watched a few of these reviews, or like even the trailer, I was I really had to watch it. And some people felt like Don't Worry Darling was like a horror. I don't find it a horror film at all. And I personally, I love Don't Worry Darling. I don't find it scary in the least. I can understand how some of it might be kind of unsettling, but personally, I absolutely love that film. And I guess part of it is because I don't see movies in the way, like, one of my members calls the popcorn group popcorn crowd do. I don't see it that way anymore. I watch movies purely for the underlying message because that's how I see all of reality now. I don't see the superficial level as much. I mean, I can if I choose to look at it that way, but I'm always looking for the underlying message. Even in silly movies like, um there was a Kevin Hart movie I watched recently, and it was kind of silly, but it was actually full of truth. So, like, everything that I watch, it isn't interesting to me really if there isn't anything underneath. There's a couple of shows I watch. There's a couple of shows I watch and I switch off my brain. Like I watch things with my parents and, it's like home reno stuff or like Grand Design or Heartbeat that usually Heartbeat talks to me. There's usually messages in it, but I do watch some of that stuff, which is like switching my brain off. And then reality TV. Speaking of reality TV, I am currently doing a video series on Love is Blind. I had to. Now I can understand the initial reaction to something like Love is Blind because it's a reality show. It's generally thought of as trash TV. However, it's a representation of our world and there's so much in it. The the best thing, and this is why I watched that show, because the best thing about it is the psychology, is getting to see how the mirror plays out, because what is it that attracts these people to each other, and how do they reveal it in their communication? How do they reveal it in what they say and what they do? And the mirroring, the law of assumption or law of attraction in action, and how this show really points out how to spot red flags, how to recognize within your own conversation, your own dialogue of things that you say that helps you figure out what your beliefs are so you can correct it so that you can actually access what you really want. Because most people are just talking and they're not paying attention to what they say. And if they paid attention to what they say, they'd be able to solve all their problems. So, this to me is super fascinating because it becomes incredibly obvious when if somebody leaves a comment or somebody leaves like has a question or a problem where they are complaining about this issue that they have, this problem that they have, the solution is in the statement that they make, the things that they say about that problem. All they have to do is read it back and then they can see, but they won't be able to see it if their head is stuck in the problem, because all they're focusing on is, yeah, I have this problem. What are you talking about? So gears and look for the solution. The solution is in the problem. And so this show is excellent for that. And it's excellent in recognizing red flag behavior, narcissistic behavior, and it's a kind, loving way for you to see yourself reflected back to you so that you can correct some of your own behavior and have better communication in your own relationships. This is what I extract from it. You can just watch it for the drama and see it as trash TV, but for me, it's an excellent study in psychology. It's so helpful. We are trash TV. Thanks, moment. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we if you wanna see it that way. Yeah. So, yeah, like, it's fascinating. Like, you can find so much depth and wealth in, oh, pretty much everything. There's some things that are harder to detect than others. Like the film discussion we were doing on Donald Sutherland, um, we covered some pretty subtle films that were very difficult to decode. But I really appreciate that we did these films because like every film that I decode reveals new truths. They're telling the same story, but there's always new things to be found about the story. And so these films, one of which was 6 Degrees of Separation, Milton's Secret, Don't Look Now, and Ordinary People. Those are the 4 films we covered. All of them were very difficult. They're not as obvious as, say, The Matrix, or um, even Don't Worry, Darling is pretty obvious. But these films were so subtle that even on first pass, you might pick up a few things, but then you'd have to watch it at least another time, maybe 2 times, to be able to start getting out of it what you needed to get out. But once we were discussing it together and we were sharing our insights together, we start building on it and extracting even more out of it. And some of the insights that we were getting from it were so powerful. And like, personally, there's nothing more satisfying than making a revelation or insight into your own story or the story or reality from breaking down a film. Because, you know, it's like, one of the things we were talking about, one of the members, she was saying about how in the beginning of Milton's Secret, this young boy was performing alchemy, which is a strange thing for a young boy to be performing. And she pointed out that he had 4 of the 5 elements. He was missing the 5th element. And then while we were talking about it, I realized, oh, the 5th element was Donald Sutherland, because he appeared after Milton meditated, and so he's the 5th element. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And you wouldn't even get that without sharing your insights. Or, maybe you would if you were looking at it 3 or 4 times trying to get there. So some of these insights were particularly fascinating. Naked Attraction is a British dating reality show I felt the same way about as you do Love is Blind. Fascinating watching trash. It is, because these particular shows, like, there's nothing more of a pressure cooker than being in a dating situation, especially one that leads to marriage. Because so if you're in a situation where you're in a confined space with somebody and you're talking to them for, let's say, 8 hours or something, a lot of truths can come out, a lot of details, information, and you can really get to know someone quite deeply. And then you develop this level of comfort with them that allows you to open up to them even more. So, this kind of show structure in terms of Love is Blind really facilitates that intimacy. And, there's fakers in there, but you can't be fake for too long. You end up getting exposed because of the intensity of it. But it really does help, because, like, bring out the traumas and issues of human behavior and human experiences, and helps you figure out how to address them and how to recognize them in other people, um especially if someone has red flag behavior that's like narcissistic or other personality disorders. And it's incredibly helpful for that. But anyway, it's one of my hobbies, to put it that way. So, yeah, like, that's basically what I'm working on at the moment. I'm still decoding Severance. I have a few episodes to go, which I'm hoping to finish before the end of the year, because the new season of Severance comes out next, I think, January. So, depending on what happens in that season, I might do some decoding of that season as well. But this show is so deep and so rich that every episode I decode, it hits so deep that I need time to process. I cannot decode an episode every week from that show because it's just too much emotionally. And a couple of times, It's like sometimes things like Love Is Blind, I need the break, the emotional break to be able to continue to make videos every week because shows like Sev are just so impactful and raw. Like one of my members said that that show is designed to hit you in your subconscious, and it is. It is absolutely designed for that. There's there's so many things in that show that there's been moments where I'm decoding it and I'm like, I know there's something here, but I can't quite touch on it. And so I just sort of sit on it for a bit and come back to it or rewatch the scene until it connects. And then when it does, a few times it's brought me to tears because it it was just so it's just rooted so deep, and the revelation of it, the truth that comes from it, the truth that's revealed in it, even if it's sometimes it's a very simple thing, like, it's something that I already knew, but seeing that connection reveals a subtlety that makes it more true or makes it more real. It can be just a sort of um, concept, and then watching that show and figuring out what that symbolizes, this particular scene symbolizes, it can just rip it right open. And all of a sudden, it goes from a concept to reality. It goes from something that I have thought about in terms of, like, say it's like the sacred tree or something. And you're like, oh, well, what does the sacred tree represent? You know that it exists, people talk about it. But when you actually connect it to something real, something within you, something that you can viscerally feel or understand at a new level, it rips you open. And so, like, that's what that show's doing to me, and it's just sometimes it's painful in a good way. I mean, it's painful, but it's all a good thing because it's helping me to remember and to connect. And so that's the goal of any of these shows, is to remember, and all of these shows help us do that. But sometimes, like, it isn't going to be just sitting passively and watching them. You have to digest it. You have to study it. You have to analyze it yourself. I watched I got an email from a viewer the other day that was just beautiful, saying that she found my channel through watching the Argyle Decode, and that was the excerpt, and it's just 12 minutes long. So I had not seen it since. So I rewatched it, and I was like, holy crap, like I was floored, and I made the video and I was like, I'd forgotten some of those things, and I was kind of shocked that I had been able to see some of those details, and rewatching it gave me new insights because it was made in March and here we are in October. So I've had so much more um, growing and involvement and insights since then, that I see new things in it. And it's only 12 minutes, but it's so packed full of information that it feels a lot longer. But the full decode is an hour long, and it's equally as intense. And I'm just like, oh my God, there's so much here that's just, again, reaching me at different levels and making new connections, even though there's certain things that I was already aware of. Um, I used to watch Scrubs when it was on TV in the early zeros. And there were episodes that would make me cry and tell people, and they'd ask, "Isn't Scrubs a comedy?" Well, yeah. I think that that's the show connecting with your subconscious. There I didn't watch too many episodes of Scrubs, but there was a show I watched that was, what was it called? *Halt and Catch Fire*, another brilliant show, by the way. *Halt and Catch Fire*, there's an episode, I forget which one, and one of the characters dies, and they show the scene in a very different way, and while I was watching it, I sobbed, and this was before I knew, like, I knew some truth, but it was before I knew, obviously, what I know now, and I sobbed so much, and I couldn't, like, I could recognize in it some truths that I wasn't prepared to see, and I that's why I had this reaction, this visceral reaction, because it triggered memories in me and truths that were painful, because obviously it's like, well, we came here to forget that, and we are now remembering it again. It's going to be painful coming back up, but it's necessary. But at that point, I wasn't ready to see what it was representing, what it was showing me. And it was showing me the projection. It was showing me that life is a movie. And I wasn't ready to see that yet. I wasn't ready to accept how fake this place is. And that's why I got emotional, and I can feel it rising again. So, change subjects, but it it's experiences like that when you're watching something and you have an emotional reaction, and you're just like, what, why? Isn't it supposed to be a comedy? What's going on here? Why am I getting emotional about this TV show and a scene that doesn't seem to be about anything specific, like, that wouldn't elicit this sort of emotion, and yet it does. So, I mean, in that particular scene, it was a death scene, so, crying is natural, but it wasn't about the death so much. It was about what they were showing in in that scene. Um, and there was so much truth in that episode. I was like, I was floored as to, like, why are they showing this in a show that's about the internet? It was a show about people who were working together in the early days of the internet. And I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense. But I understand now. In the Scrubs episode that made me cry, they were all about death too. Well, that's interesting. So yeah. So, yeah, just a quick live today. I'm going to wrap this up and get going with the rest of my day, but I just wanted to come on here and catch up with everybody. So, yeah, I hope you're listening to my podcast, and I'm going to try to be more active on YouTube. It's it's just like life stuff has been going on that pulled me away from it. So I just went with it because there's a reason. And now I feel that I'm coming back to it, and I want to come back to it. So I will be on here more often. And one of the things, I'm trying to figure out the best way to come back to YouTube that is beneficial for you all and is easy for me. Obviously, like, I can't put full decodes on here anymore. It's too time consuming, and that's for my memberships. But I want to provide content that's interesting to you, and in line with that sort of thing. If you have um, some ideas of what you would like to see, let me know. I can't guarantee that I would do it, but I will take it into consideration. It might give me ideas on how best to come back in a very simple kind of way. Maybe it's live chats, maybe it's pre-recorded discussions on movies or something. So yeah, let me know. Anyway, I hope you're all doing well. It was lovely to see you all. And if you're in the Discord, I'll see you there. If you're a member, I will see you soon. And yeah, join me for the film discussions. Get active as much as you can and participate so you can learn to decode yourself and you can learn to decode your own life. Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Bye.